The first company to present is Carbiotix and CEO Kristofer Cook. Welcome, Kristofer.
Thank you, Martin. Pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today at the BioStock Life Science Summit 2001. What I thought about doing today is essentially going through the motivation of why Carbiotix exists in the first place, then going to how, in terms of the problem we solve, what we are doing, and when we are going to do it. And in connection with that, this roadmap, which I presented quite recently as well. But let's go back, I think, to the beginning. What is the microbiome? Well, it's the 100 trillion microorganisms that are living on us and in us as well. And just in the large intestine and the distal colon, there are 30 trillion bacteria. And these bacteria are living off of soluble fibers, otherwise known as prebiotics. And when they consume these prebiotics, they produce key metabolites, such as butyric acid. And they play a very important role in maintaining the integrity of the lining of the large intestine, where 70% of your immune system resides. They're also important in terms of the regulation and management of blood sugar, cholesterol, and triggering different chronic and metabolic diseases as well. So this is an extremely important ecosystem, and we are as much microorganism as we are human. Now, if we look at the progression of these probiotic bacteria we have in our guts, both in terms of volume and diversity, we know as infants, as we move into consuming more solid foods, we have this explosion of the amount of diversity and numbers of probiotic bacteria. But as we go through life, and this is indicative of the Western world, we start to see a decrease, and especially with the incurrence of different types of chronic diseases, we see these communities crashing in terms of host probiotic species. Now, there are different ways of addressing this. Obviously, the introduction of probiotics have been utilized to introduce new species or to sort of ameliorate the problem for different individuals. But the jury is still out in terms of the grafting of these, whether these populations remain, and whether the introduction of these external probiotics, whether they have a detrimental impact on your host probiotics over time as well. One thing we do know, however, is that prebiotics, again, the food for your host probiotic species, are lacking in essentially 90% of the adult population today in the Western world, and between 50, probably up to 80% deficiency amongst these 90% of adults. And the reason for that is several-fold. It's the overconsumption of sugars, red meats, alcohols, emulsifiers, all the good things in life, unfortunately. But how can we address this? Well, I think as a CEO of this company, you have to practice what you preach. And in 2017, I decided to take a journey to consume a large amount of a prebiotic. In this case, a best-in-class prebiotic at market at the time. And what I wanted to do is to see whether if I consume this prebiotic over time, could I restore this host probiotic population in my own gastrointestinal system. And I consume between 5 and 40 grams. 5 grams is typically the deficiency that most dietitians and nutritionists recommend to supplement. And I consumed well above that. And today I still consume about 20 grams a day. And during the COVID period, I consumed about 40 if I needed an extra boost. But what this data shows you is that there's an upward trend in terms of the improvement of gut health measured by looking at different short-chain fatty acids. Again, these metabolites produced from my host probiotic bacteria. But what was also, and probably more interesting from this type of analysis, is that long-term data is needed to observe this trend. For example, if we took a data point in a trough, would that be representative of my gut health over the long term? Probably not. The same thing with a peak data point. Therefore, longitudinal data is necessary to understand trends. And therefore, if you're going to offer a test in this space, you have to collect longitudinal data, and therefore the price of your test becomes extremely important. So what did we do? Well, at Carbiotix, we came up with the concept of the smart prebiotic that builds upon an efficacious prebiotic having a high bifidogenic effect, i.e. stimulating the production of these key metabolites, as well as a tolerance. You have to be able to consume large amounts if you want a large effect. Also being able to match this prebiotic with individual needs. Does this individual need this product? Does it produce an effect, and can we increase the effect over time? Because what this fundamentally means is that, are we going to introduce transparency into the products we're selling? Can we personalize these products over time as well? And then lastly, can we create synergies across different product groups, i.e. if you consume it as a nutraceutical or a food product, as a medical food or something else? Can we introduce it into as many different food products or different food products as well as medical products as possible to get synergy effects between these products? This is the concept of the smart prebiotic that we introduced. Now, if we look at the mission of the company, it's built fundamentally on this concept of the smart prebiotic. The mission is to increase the consumption of soluble fibers and prebiotics in people's diets. Again, why? Because of the deficiency in the fact that our own host probiotic bacteria need these prebiotics. And to do that, we want to manufacture, again, a balance between the lowest cost and most effective prebiotic possible. And we want to sell this prebiotic through as many forms and channels as possible. Again, food, nutraceutical, medical food, and therapeutic. And then we want to validate the efficacy of these products. Again, offering this cost-effective gut health test to provide transparency and to allow for personalization. So, what do we offer today? Well, LinkGut is a concept we launched originally as a B2C service, and now it's entirely a B2B service. And what it is a white label API service offering a gut health test to any organization in the world who wants to collect this data and interpret this data and provide this data to their customers. And today, I'm very proud to say that our test has the lowest cost today. It's 50 to 75% less costly than the next alternative in the marketplace. It's the most reliable service because we're collecting longitudinal data. Again, a prerequisite to offer a test where you can collect longitudinal data is to have a low cost. And it's the most flexible solution as well in the marketplace. In the sense is because we're working with all these different companies and their requirements, we're able to collect ideas from all of our partners, embed this into our application, and then roll that out across all of our partners today. Now we're targeting a market which is about 100 million euros today, but the total market for gut health or microbiome diagnostics is about $1 billion. So as we move from sort of this consumer space into research and academia, we can take this ecosystem and eventually target that market as well. But for the time being, we're targeting consumer applications. Now, CarbiAXOS is our next generation prebiotic material. Again, one of the key foundations of this smart prebiotic concept is to have a strong pillar or a strong prebiotic product. And in this case, CarbiAXOS, which is our first product, but definitely not our last product, because the ambition of the company is to bring multiple prebiotic products to market, is a market that today is about 5 billion euros, growing at a roughly 10%. In this case, we want to bring to market a product that is up to 10 times more effective, has key functional properties such as emulsification properties, but is also an attractive price point for each of the product groups we are targeting. And in this case, because we're targeting initially maize, it has the highest level of this particular active ingredient that we're looking for in terms of AX. We also saw that we can take our ingredient, purify it, and sell it in the form of a medical food. So targeting a co-intervention application to address pharmacokinetic issues as well as the side effects of different therapeutics. Now this market is substantially larger. It's a 15 billion euro market where today there aren't any prebiotic medical foods. So this is a new area to enter, but because of the time horizon in terms of how a prebiotic product modulates the gut over time, it's extremely complementary to other more synthetic pharmaceutical products. And today we're involved in 2 studies, a type 2 diabetes study looking at metformin as well as a CBD study as well. Now, to take this one step further, obviously there's an opportunity to look at unique symbiotic formulations where we're combining both probiotics. Again, we are pro-probiotic if the probiotic doesn't lead to a decrease in host probiotic populations. So if we introduce a probiotic with a prebiotic and that leads to the establishment of stronger communities and the growth of host probiotic populations, that makes sense to us. And in this case, we want to target the same disease areas as our medical foods, but introduce something we call co-treatments. And again, this is about being able to modulate the gut more effectively. So where do we stand today with regards to our diagnostics and our prebiotics? In the case of LinkGut, we went through a development phase in Q1, initial introduction phase, a beta phase in Q3, and then obviously the first full-scale rollout now. And what we anticipate is actually one new full-scale rollout every quarter going forward, well into 2022 as well as beyond that. And the goal here is quite simple. It's to leverage the fact that we are the most cost-effective, flexible, and reliable gut health test on the market, and we want to become the de facto B2B service in this space, because the future is about transparency, the future is about personalization, and this test becomes the backbone and the validator of any type of intervention, and especially the interventions that we're selling in terms of the different modulators. With regards to CarbiAXOS, and this has been communicated as well, our goal is that the site renovation is complete by November of this year, and phase 1 of the first installation is completed by the end of the year. Additionally, there'll be work done regarding the GRAS process, and there what we're doing is collecting, I think it was 5 batches and sending them for analysis, and they'll be included in the dossier that's submitted to this particular expert panel. But the key thing there is that we collect samples from batches that are representative of our process, and that's why there has been a slight delay in connection with building up of this process as well. So once our process is in place, we can utilize that, collect the batches, use them within the dossier, and then that process can move forward as well. So it's very logical. Where is this site going to be based? Well, this site is based in Bjuv, Sweden, so outside of Helsingborg, and this site will be our primary production site for nutraceutical products going forward, as well as eventually medical foods and therapeutics as well. So food-based ingredients we sell will probably be built close to the sourcing of the raw materials and the customers as well, especially in the F&B space, and therefore continental United States as well as continental Europe as well. In this particular case, we're extremely pleased by getting access to this site, and kudos have to be sent to Food Hills for being a property owner that's displayed great flexibility and cooperation in getting this site in place. So we're extremely pleased to be based at this site. Last but not least, recently we introduced a product roadmap, and in that roadmap, where the smart prebiotic is essentially embedded in every single modulator class, so this diagnostic service, we communicated that we'd be first targeting supplement ingredients, and there the total addressable market we're looking at is about €1 billion, coming first into the United States, getting GRAS self-affirmation because of the bar itself in connection with that regulatory requirement, and then moving into Europe in 2023 and the rest of the world in 2024. This will be followed, obviously, because of the requirement for scaling up the food and beverage ingredient and the partners that need to be brought into that constellation. 2025 will be the goal there for the US, and 2026 for the rest of the world. In the case of the supplement, we're targeting a product with a 30 to 40 euro per kg price point with a 75% gross margin, and in the case of the F&B products ingredients, we're targeting 10 euros per kilo with a 50 to 75% gross margin. Moving forward, obviously the medical food co-interventions and Carbiotix therapeutic co-treatments will be moving into 2025 onwards as well with these products. But these products are extremely interesting because the price per kilo is extremely high at 100 plus euros per kg, and the gross margins are very attractive as well. And with that, I welcome any questions.
Great, Kristofer.
Yeah,
I have
thank
one.
you. Certainly.
You mentioned the self-GRAS affirmation process. Why is that important? Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the GRAS process is it's a prerequisite to sell the product in the United States. And in this case, it's a self-affirmation process. And a self-affirmation process is we declaring as a company that the product is safe. So it's not a review by the FDA. The requirement with self-affirmation is that we construct a dossier, a safety dossier. It's sent to a panel of 3 people, not within the FDA, but independent experts. The experts review the dossier, they deem it as a safe product, and then if the FDA requires that we provide a dossier demonstrating its safety, we can provide that dossier with the confirmation from this panel of experts that it is safe. That's the first stage. The second stage after that, once we get maturity in our process, i.e. that we have consistency of production, optimization curve planes out in terms of not being able to change the process fundamentally. Once we achieve that, then we can go for no objection, which is where we actually provide a dossier to the FDA, and then they provide, they don't give any comment, and that's why it's called no objection. To sell the product in the United States, self-affirmation is fully acceptable. A lot of our competitive first-generation products are only self-affirmation awarded, and therefore we feel that that's an adequate bar to meet to start selling the product within the United States. And it provides the template dossier that we can use both for the no objection as well as the novel foods application within Europe. And again, it's important to remind the audience that we will be introducing multiple products, looking at multiple substrate materials to capitalize, especially on local materials, because we're not only looking at the cost, but we're looking at the carbon impact. What is the carbon footprint of our product as well? And therefore sourcing locally becomes an important factor.
So the GRAS affirmation is a prerequisite for introducing in the CarbiAXOS in supplements. And is there a difference between supplements and things like beverages and or?
Yeah, the benefit obviously starting with the supplement product is a product where you have a much higher price point, so 30 to 40 euros per kg, and attractive gross margins as well. Whether we need to resubmit an application for a food and beverage application really depends on our end product. Is it substantially different than obviously our nutraceutical product? And that will be ironed out obviously as we go through the scale-up process and determine what will be how will that product be in terms of its composition. Is it fundamentally different? Yes, then we need to go through that GRAS process again. But fundamentally, we can base that on the initial self-affirmation dossier we put together. So once we figure out the process, again, we're looking at 2024-25 for this food and beverage ingredient. We know the market for nutraceuticals is €1 billion market, so it's quite big already, and it's probably 200,000 tons or something of that order. And again, the site we're building is going to be within 4 to 5 years 1,000 tons. Yeah. So we're not taking a significant portion of the market. The market is big and it's growing at plus 10% per annum as well. So the company could fundamentally survive in the nutraceutical space with a high price product, very good margins, and not enter the F&B space. But I want to get this product through as many channels as possible to access as many people as possible to impact obviously the gut health of people positively.
Looking at the more short term then, what would be the most important activities for Carbiotix for 2022?
Yeah, getting our process online. Start producing product, getting the first sales contract in place. Obviously, the completion of the GRAS assay to initiate those sales. Scaling up of the process as well. We've seen good interest to date in the product, and being able to scale up, as I mentioned, up to 100 tons at the existing footprint is a primary task. At the same time, obviously rolling out the diagnostic services to key clients is also building up that validation, personalization tool. and then working with the next generation of production. Although we're looking at food and beverage, ingredient, access applications, in 24 and 25, that process has to be started early. These partners have to be brought in, so the engineering and the financing, all these things have to be started early. So finding suitable partners already for North America as well as continental Europe, that process has to start immediately. And actually, we have started that process. I'm not going to wait for things to happen in a certain pragmatic order. We start the process given the fact that we see opportunity already in terms of forming partnerships in different constellations. Over and above that, further development of different prebiotic products. So our R&D team working with different enzymes on different substrates, and then making progress on our medical foods with regards to the studies, as well as getting some critical IP in place for our therapeutics as well. So a lot to be done, exciting times, because we're obviously moving into another location and having a production site. Getting ISO standards in place, we're making very good progress there, so which helps us professionalize the entire organization as well, and ramping up sales activities. And this is why we brought in, both on the engineering side in our board, 2 key individuals with process and engineering experience and industry experience from the F&B nutraceutical space, as well as Eric, our head of sales, who's doing a fantastic job in building up that sales pipeline.
Sounds like a lot of reasons to keep following you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristofer.
Yeah, thank you, Martin.